Hopefully just a quick explainer video of a switch panel I'm building in my van. 6 switches, so these are just hardwired, drilled straight into the panel of the van. 20 millimeters each, quite difficult to achieve at first. 2 switches for the fan, so I have a Sirocco fan. These things are fantastic, only 360 milliamps, and a small fan which is acting as a exhaust fan. So on top of that is a Venturi vent. So 2 switches for the interior lights, one red set of lights, the other one white, and so 2 outside switches, one for the rear, which is a passive infrared motion sensor light, one for the side of the van, so handy when camping, for example. Has a yellow amber color to it as well. These are going to be powered off initially just a battery box, so this is just plugged in to run the ceiling fan at the moment to draw out some of the heat for summer. Just using this until I get a proper battery system installed. So before building the wiring for the fans and lights to be installed in the van, I've drawn up a schematic plan. I had to do this a few times. This is a bit of a learning curve for me, so hopefully I've got it right. I've built the wiring system for the van and just currently doing a bench test to see if it works before I actually do install it. I'm using 215 amp hour batteries, so this will be completely independent of the vehicle's power system, and eventually we'll install solar panels, inverter, etc. Power from the battery goes to the switches. Due to where the switches are, I was limited by space, so therefore had to be wired in a specific order. So power from the battery goes to switch 5, then 6, then to 4, then to 3, then to 1, then to number 2 switch. So the fans and lights inside, I've just used a simple on-off switch, single pole, single throw, just 2 terminals at the back because there is no LED. The rear sensor light, I've used a on-off-on switch, and the side light outside on the van, I'm using a LED switch. So because it has a LED in the switch, that switch does have to be earthed to activate that LED. So here's 3 terminals at the back. Now it's the copper terminal is the negative on that switch. Usually it's the middle prong is the power supply, and the top prong, or the opposite to the earth, is the power out or the load switch. So just a simple on-off switch as well. The on-off-on switches, the single pole double throw, 3 prongs again. The middle prong is the power in, and the 2 outer ones are the power out. They're the load prongs going to the appliance. So because it's an infrared motion activated light to go in the back of the van, one for just powering the unit as a normal light, and the other prong to activate the PIR, or the infrared motion activated sensor, on that particular light. So these are all fused, all the appliances are fused, and each appliance, as always, has a earth or a negative, and these are all wired up. This is a bit of a mess, to a block connector, or a connector block. This is just a cost-effective way to connect all your earthing or the negative, and therefore that negative goes back to the negative of the battery. Just to give this a bit of a test run, so the inside lights and fan, just a test. So the one fan, which is the Sirocco fan, as it's already installed into the van, I'm just using an LED light to test for that. So just simply on, off. The number 2 switch is for the ceiling exhaust fan, indicated by just the other LED light there as well. So number 3 switch is the set of white lights to be installed in the van, indicated by the 2 small incandescent lights. I prefer to use incandescent instead of LED, so they work fine. I'm also installing a set of red lights for the van, for various reasons. Now the motion activated light to go on the back of the van, for security reasons as well, that's the on, off, on switch. So I can turn it on for having it just as a normal light, turn it off, also turn the second, which is the white wire down there, that will activate the motion activated setting. So that is on now. That will turn off if I'm not here. It is pretty dark at the moment. And the switch for the outside side light has an LED, so that's just a single pole, single throw, but as mentioned before, they have to be earthed. So LED lights have to be earthed. It took me a bit to learn that one. So I can turn that switch on, which is providing power to the light, which will go on the outside side of the van. Now this is operated by a switch of its own. So press 1 for white light, 2 for amber light, and to turn it off. So I can control that from inside the van with the LED on off switch. So that's off, so the outside light will not turn on. Turn it on at the switch. Now I can activate that light via its own on-off switch. If I do turn that off, turn it back on, it will resume to the setting that it was left on. 15 amp wiring. I've used terminals which I've crimped and soldered just to be extra assured that this is going to hold together. Always use fuses for each appliance. Just the basic tools I used, of course, soldering iron, the set of wire cutters and crimpers, electrical screwdriver, scissors to cut up the shrink wrap, heat shrink I should say. Much prefer to use heat shrink as opposed to electrical tape, which can be a pain in the ass. It just gets sticky and ugly and falls off all the time. And that is pretty much it. So I'm ready to install the wiring harness into the van. And just as a side note, I've also found a butane torch far more effective than a cigarette lighter at using on the heat shrink. Doesn't seem to burn as much compared to a lighter. I'd like to hear other people's opinion on that as well. And to just show that the sensor light is actually working, so apparently has a 3-4 meter radius that will stay on for about a minute, I believe. And also just to mention that I have coded each of these fuses, so I know exactly which wire goes to which switch. So 2 separate fuses for the motion activated light. So one to power the light to use as a light, so I can turn that on and off. The white cable there goes to another fuse, which is the number 2 on that on-off switch, so I can turn on the motion activated system. So this is the end result, 6 switches, wiring behind in the paneling of the van, 2 fan switches. We have here the ceiling exhaust fan, 12 volts, and the Sirocco fan, which are absolutely fantastic. These are incredibly low amperage, different settings, turns 360 degrees. 2 lights, switches for internal. We have the red and the white. So they're up there on the ceiling one at the back. So the LED are incredibly effective, extremely low amperage as well. Same with the red internal LEDs. I might put some more of them in there. And we have 2 switches for the external lights, all powered by a 115 amp battery box, which is also set up to power lights above the bed. So once again, 1 white, 1 red. Now these are incandescent light bulbs, very hard to find, do produce a bit of heat, but incandescent does have some advantages over LED.